Hi there, thanks. I apparently cannot operate a microphone anymore, so I guess I brushed the mute button. Thanks for letting me know that you couldn't hear me. I'll start over, of course. I've got a few things I want to go over as always. Thanks for joining. I do appreciate it. I want to just go over the first thing is the term paper. It's due not this Friday, but next Friday. So you should be well on your way with that. If you're not, time to start panicking and putting in a lot of time on that. As I've said before, it's not a particularly long-term paper, but the challenge may be in getting enough information in a nice, condensed and well-written, well-refined term paper to get maximal marks in the space that you're allotted. Hopefully you've at least started to do some research and have some sources to work with, because there are certain requirements there. Please review those requirements. I've talked about the term paper at length in previous office hours. I think it's fairly clear. What I'm really looking for, just to hit the high points, is a good essay that's written in a scholastic format using APA formatting with a title page and a references section. I don't care about full APA formatting. For instance, the title page doesn't have to conform, and we don't need all the various sections. You can do an introduction. You should probably do an introduction. Whether you section that off separately and label it introduction or not is up to you. It can be in just pure essay format, but please write it and revise it multiple times to get it to the best possible quality. Know your sources do not all have to come from Google Scholar. That is just your best source, because those are peer-reviewed. Those are peer-reviewed articles, and they're going to be of the highest quality. However, some of the subjects don't lend themselves to that. There may not be 5 peer-reviewed papers on a given subject that you've chosen. So just make sure that your sources are as good as they possibly can be. Don't quote, for instance, Netflix's website to tell me how fantastic Netflix is. Of course, Netflix's website is going to say how great they are. Okay, so that sort of thing. Yeah, so yeah, they don't have to come from Google Scholar. More is better from there. Are we allowed to use direct quotes? Yes, but I discourage it very, very much. I would not, in a paper this size, use more than 1 or maybe 2 direct quotes. If you start using more than that, it becomes difficult to read and very difficult to grade, because it's not really your work. You're just quoting a whole bunch of different sources. There is that academic skills video that I provided under course requirements in general that talks about things like that. It's well worth, especially as you're going into the revision stage of writing. It's well worth reviewing that because it will give you some really, really strong hints and processes to become a better writer once you're doing your own reviews. Okay. You're very welcome. No problem at all. So that covers, for the most part, and I'm happy to take more questions on it. That covers our term paper. The next thing I want to talk about were discussions. As probably everyone's aware, discussion 3 post 2 was due Friday, yesterday at 11:59 p.m. We will be marking those right away, and we'll have the marks back out to you probably by worst case scenario Thursday of next week. What you're not going to see is any written feedback. We spent a long time doing written feedback on discussion 1 and discussion 2. And our experience has taught us that what we end up doing is we end up writing the same sort of feedback over and over again for the students that won't read the feedback previously. In other words, if you have, and hopefully everyone that's listening to this, whether live or on the recording afterwards, has reviewed the feedback, and if you've lost marks, you understand where that is. but our experience shows us that some people don't ever read that, and we just waste a bunch of time telling them the same thing on all sets of posts. So we don't do that anymore. So it will be a mark. If you have confusion about that mark, please do send me an email. I'm happy to respond, but please read through the rubric, understand the line that you've been assigned or the mark you've been assigned for each area, and read that description. And hopefully that alone will be clear enough, and then review your previous feedback. The first thing that I will do when someone sends me one like that and says, I don't understand why I didn't get any marks for my referencing, is I will look in the first two posts, the first two discussions, and see if they've already been told that you have to cite your references or it's a 0, because that's generally the situation. So we spend an awful lot of time trying to give good feedback, and we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make that horse drink. So please drink. In other words, take a look at the feedback that is provided. And then if you're still not sure, or if we've made a mistake, please do reach out to me, and I will certainly review and discuss with you. Okay, so that's the discussions. And then the third thing that I wanted to talk about was the exam scheduling. Sorry, if we get perfect on all first 4 discussion posts, can we skip the last one since it's best 4 out of 5, or should we still complete it? That's a great question. You can get 1 out of, in our case, 1 out of 5 in each of the discussion posts, and skip the last one. You're welcome to do whatever you want. There's no requirement to do any discussion posts. But if you've already got a perfect mark, or you've got a mark that's so good you don't think it's worth the time, say you've got out of 20 with your first 4, you've got 19 and a half, let's say, and now you've got it nailed now, and you could probably get a 5 out of 5, but it's going to cost you an hour and a half of your time to do that, and you're busier with something else. There's better spent doing something else. Please do skip it. So there is no requirement. The only caution or caveat that I would throw at you is to take a look at the topic at least, because that topic is potential game. It's game for being used in the final exam. So that's the only thing that I would say is to go ahead and do that. Just so that you're familiar with the material that I asked about, whether or not you choose to do some research. I wouldn't waste a lot of time that way, but it is fair game for the final exam. Okay. Going on to exam scheduling. So you received an email from Trent online at Trent. U.ca, and it required you to schedule your final exam by March 18th. So we're at March 12th today. So next Friday, presumably, is March 18th. You need to pick the way you're going to write your final exam. So there's 3 choices: Peterborough, Durham, or online. All are proctored. If you don't make a choice, you will be assigned to Peterborough. After the 18th, we will not be shuffling you around, will not be accommodating. The emails of, I'm sorry, I forgot I wanted to write online, but I forgot to respond to the email. I don't care. I'm not scheduling anyone. I'm not going through the hassle. People have been given 2 weeks or possibly more to respond and schedule. So I am vehemently telling you that if you do not want to write your exam in Peterborough in person, you need to make a choice. Even if you do want to write in Peterborough, I would appreciate you responding and just saying that Peterborough is your location. Okay. If you want to avoid me, or if you want to see me, I will be the one that's proctoring in Durham, most likely. It will likely be the workshop leaders that will be proctoring in Peterborough. And online is proctored by a group called Examity, which is an outside contractor that Trent hires to do that. And the way it works is that you'll once you've chosen that, You will then have to choose a time with Examity to schedule your exam. So it will be very similar in time, but not necessarily exactly the same time as your peers are writing in person. So that's a really good choice if you prefer to write later in the evening or whatever. I'm not sure when our exam is scheduled exactly. I haven't looked at it. But you can do it that way. My caution is that you are responsible for your internet connection. You need to have a backup plan so that if for whatever reason your internet provider decides not to give you internet during the exam, there is no way I can remedy that. I have no possible way of remedying that. I have no way of being able to prove that you don't have internet, anything like that. So please have a backup plan. That backup plan may be going to a nearby place that has a different internet provider. It may be using data on your phone or on someone else's phone, but please have a backup plan, okay? So the process will be you'll schedule your exam with Examity. Examity will meet you on Blackboard, or when you click the link from Blackboard to go to Examity, then they will give you access to the exam. So the exam itself will be password protected. Examity will have that password. They will let you in and they will monitor. I'm not sure if a microphone is required, and I'll make a note to ask that question, but I know that a webcam is definitely required. They will be aware of the cheat sheet, Julia, for sure. I let them know. They get all the specs. They get told how long that you can write for. Like the setup for the exam is the same as any online exam in that you'll get the same amount of time you would otherwise. And I will certainly have told Examity that it's an 8.5 by 11 two-sided cheat sheet, as small a print or as large a print as you want, handwritten or printed. And I presume that they will ask you to hold that up and show it to them on the web camera. Unfortunately, I've never experienced writing one with Examity, so maybe I'll get IT. Yeah, Examity will also be aware of SAS time accommodation. So that is what I was trying to say. That's built into your exam anyways. So just like it was built into your midterm, okay? So that part should go smoothly. If you have problems online, you'll want to reach out to online at Trent. Like, let's say Examity doesn't show up for whatever reason. And, if something like that happens, try to remain calm. We're going to definitely do a workaround for you. If it's circumstances outside your control, meaning Examity is messed up or something, we'll take care of you, but reach out immediately to online at trentu.ca, and they will have lots of people monitoring and they will attempt to resolve the situation. You're going to want to copy me just so that I'm aware as well. So just circling, I think that's all I have to say about the final right now. All that I knew that I wanted to say anyways. Can you expand on what you mean by it being fair game? Would it be general questions regarding topics, or should we know specifics for each? So that's a difficult question to answer, Jennifer, but I'll take a run at it. There's likely to be, and I haven't written the final exam, I'm just basing on previous ones, and I will do full disclosure as we get closer. We'll have one of these office hours that basically all we'll talk about is the final exam. But the way I see it and the way I usually go, there's multiple choice questions, and that is the kind of questions that you've seen in the quiz all along. And then what I usually do with the short answer is I do sort of a scenario, and I walk you through some sort of a scenario, whether that's some sort of investigation or whatever. And I ask you to write questions about specific steps or about specific concepts along the way. So yeah, you might be, for instance, on site collecting evidence. You've executed a search warrant, you're on site collecting evidence. I might use multiple little scenarios, mini scenarios, but in the past, what I've done is done a single scenario and just walked you through. So the first thing you see is, you're in a room, it's got 23 computers in it. What sort of approach are you going to take? You're in charge. You're the lead investigator. You're in charge of, managing this investigation. What's your first step? Describe in detail, something like that. And then I might take you to a specific computer and say, this computer you're looking at, it's got the crime you think has been committed here is luring online. You are looking at, you see that a browser's installed, you see Google Chrome's installed. What sort of artifacts are you going to look at? So that sort of thing. So our discussion posts, just to circle back to your actual question, our discussion posts are wide and varied, but I might throw in, are you concerned about steganography? Why or why not? I might throw a question like that in. So I don't think it would be specifics because everyone's answered in a different way, but it might be generalities on the topic that we've covered in the discussions. Does that, in my roundabout and probably overly long way, answer your question, Jennifer? Okay, good. Yep, great. And again, we'll come back. We'll talk about the exam ad nauseum before the exam in our last office hours. So Pia, thank you. So you've done an exam with Examity. They ask you to show around the room you're in to make sure that you're alone. Yeah. My understanding is you. So let me ask you this, Pia. Did you have to have a microphone? Yes, you did. Okay. So you need a webcam and a microphone. And obviously an internet connection, and that should be all your requirements, right? And show ID. Yeah. Yeah, the ID, yeah, that's significant, but I will be asking for that in person, and the people in Peterborough will also be asking. So student ID, ideally, I think there are people without student ID just because of the whole COVID thing. Some sort of government issued ID is generally acceptable. I think student ID is always preferred. And sorry, when I say government issued ID, I mean government issued photo ID. So I certainly will accept a driver's license when I see you in person. No problem whatsoever. Yep, awesome. Any idea is good. I'm just reading your comments, Pia, just because there's going to be people that are watching the video that aren't here live. So Pia's saying that any idea is good, and government ID was used in Pia's case. Okay. Does anyone have? That's all that I wanted to cover specifically that I can think of. Is there any other questions that anyone else has? All right. Well, in that case, please do get on with your Saturday. Once again, thank you very much. Well, thanks for telling me that my microphone wasn't actually on, because that would have been bad. Yeah, I see that, Jay. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for letting me know that my mic wasn't on. That would have been bad. But thanks for taking the time to come to these. Thanks for taking the time to ask questions. It helps other students as well as yourself. Makes my life a little easier as well. So thank you very much. Get on with your Saturday. Have a great remainder of your weekend, and spend some time working on your term paper, please. Thanks, guys.